Standing beside him, Liwei looked down at his uncle and told him that he already knew why he had come. Leaning in, his gaze sharp, he asked him if he took him for a fool, if he saw him as some stupid puppet, and that it seemed he did not know him at all, did not know what he was capable of, which was why he thought he could play tricks with his mind without knowing who exactly he was messing with. His uncle kept his eyes on him, trying to hide the trembling in his hands. His voice shook as he said he would call security. Liwei laughed, a short, cold sound, asking if he really thought he was stupid enough to walk into his hospital room unprepared. Moving closer, his stare unrelenting, Liwei told him he had gone as far as to claim he was dying and faked a brain tumor just to lure him into a trap. He leaned in and said that since he had lied about something so serious, that meant he truly wanted to die, and that Liwei was there to fulfill his wish. Then he told him to look at something first. He connected his phone to the television and played a video. Glancing at his uncle, voice sharp and fierce, he told him to watch the screen. The footage rolled. The young boy, Liwei, arriving at the institution his uncle had sent him to abroad after the family died. The camera showed how he had been mistreated, beaten by caretakers until he bled, starved for weeks, locked in a cage with no food or water. The screen did not lie. Raw bruises, open wounds, desperate cries. His uncle tried to turn his head away, but Liwei gripped his face and forced him to watch. He told him this was all his work, and he should see it. The room filled with the anguished screams of a young Liwei begging for mercy as he was treated like a wild animal, left for dead with injuries that were ignored. When the video ended, Liwei switched off the TV and pulled a chair to sit beside his uncle's bed. He told him that those were the videos the medical professionals had always sent him, proof that they were following the orders the uncle had given. He said that the uncle had instructed them to torture him until he died, to treat him worse than animals. He chuckled and told him even animals were treated better than how he had been treated. Still looking at him, Liwei said that he had been only 16, a boy who did not deserve such treatment, especially not from someone he considered family, and that his uncle had let greed push him to commit an evil so extreme he had wanted to unalive an innocent child for power and money. Leaning in, eyes darkening, Liwei demanded to know why he had conspired with outsiders to kill his brother's family, why he had treated him the way he had. His uncle trembled, speechless, his whole body going numb. Liwei's voice cut through the silence, sharp and piercing, commanding him to speak. He wanted to know why. His uncle's voice came out barely above a whisper as he said he had been forced, that people behind the scenes had manipulated him into doing such things. Liwei laughed then, a mocking, hollow sound, telling him that no one had manipulated him. He had done it all himself because of greed, because of a dark, evil desire for what he had not earned. Liwei glanced at his watch, then back at his uncle, saying there was no time to waste, and that it was time to do what he had come to do. He took out an injection and told him that inside was a poisonous chemical. When introduced into the bloodstream, the pain and agony would be like being burnt alive, and it would only take 5 minutes for the suffering to peak before death came. He said he would inject him and sit there, watching as life drained from him. At the word poison, Liwei's uncle began to shake, begging him not to do it, insisting they were family, that the same blood flowed through their veins and he could not kill family. Liwei laughed again, but his eyes grew colder, and he reminded him of all the times he had ordered others to treat him like an animal and had conspired to kill his family. Had he ever thought of them as family then? The uncle whispered that Liwei was a monster. Liwei leaned even closer, telling him he was the one who had created the monster and should not be surprised when the monster he made came back to bite him. The uncle tried to scream, but Liwei moved with one swift motion, covering his mouth and holding him down. Tears streamed down his uncle's face as he struggled in a panic. Liwei's face was unreadable as he held the syringe, his movements slow and deliberate, He pressed the needle in and injected the poison, watching the reaction in his uncle's eyes, watching the color drain as the chemical coursed through the veins. The uncle convulsed, agony contorting his features. His eyes reddened, tears flowing as the pain consumed him. Liwei stood and watched him writhe, feeling none of the pity that might shame another man. All that occupied his mind were the memories, the screams of his own family in the fire, the way he had been tortured at 16, and he wanted his uncle to feel a reflection of that beginning-to-end torment. The uncle finally gave in, breath ragged, eyes closing. Liwei uncovered his mouth, watched the last breaths leave him, then moved with cold efficiency. He cleaned up the scene, smoothed the sheets, wiped his hands, and left the room without looking back. He felt no remorse. All he felt was the cold resolve burning in him. This was only the beginning, the first move toward the mastermind. Meanwhile, Amara sat in the bedroom, her study materials spread across the bed, though her mind had long drifted away from the pages before her. Her thoughts were entirely consumed by Liwei. She reached for her phone, glancing at the time. It was already past midnight. A faint line appeared between her brows as she looked through all the messages she had sent him, unanswered, the silence gnawing at her chest. Worry flickered across her face as she wondered if he was okay. She dialed his number, her thumb hovering over the call button, but before she could press it, the door swung open. Liwei walked in, stumbling slightly as he brushed against the furniture. His steps were uneven, his movements heavy. The faint smell of alcohol clung to him, and from the unfocused look in his eyes, it was clear he was drunk, deeply so. Amara immediately stood and rushed to him, her hands catching his arm to steady him as she asked if he was okay, how he had gotten so drunk. Liwei looked at her, eyes glazed, his words slurring as he asked if she had missed him. He moved closer, almost losing his balance, his breath warm and heavy with whiskey. He told her that all he wanted was for her to hold him tightly because he had just done something that made him feel like a monster. Amara's heart clenched as she looked at him, asking softly what he had done. Liwei, his words still broken and unsteady, simply told her to hold him. She guided him to the bed and helped him lie down. He pulled her into his arms, holding her tightly as though afraid she would vanish if he loosened his grip. His arms wrapped around her with desperation, his hand coming up to touch her face gently as his eyes searched hers. He told her that she was his home, his world, his universe, and that without her he wouldn't have made it this far. He would have crashed long ago. His gaze softened as he spoke, the drunkenness unable to mask the raw truth in his voice. He said that people often claim they would die for those they love, but for him it was different. He wanted to live for her. She had shown him a side of life he never thought he would experience. Amara's eyes glistened as she smiled faintly, her hand brushing his hair as she told him to close his eyes and rest, that he was too drunk. Liwei laughed softly, admitting that he was indeed drunk, almost finishing 2 bottles of whiskey by himself. His gaze shifted again, darker this time, his words slurring as he asked her if she would still love him if she found out he was a killer. He said he felt nothing when he looked at those who had wronged them and ended their lives. Amara froze at his words, her breath catching as she asked him what he meant. Liwei laughed again, low and bitter, saying that maybe he had scared her, and that he would understand if she left him because of it, because he was a cold-blooded killer, a monster. But he added, his voice dark and steady despite the alcohol, that he would never accept it if she left him for another man or for some petty reason. If she ever did that, he said he would bring her back to his life no matter what. But if she left because of valid reasons, because of what he truly was, he would understand. Amara looked at him, confusion and sorrow filling her gaze as she wondered why he was saying all of that. She leaned closer, her voice soft yet firm, telling him that she was not leaving him no matter what. That even if he lost everything, even if he could no longer walk, she would still be with him. She told him that even if he became the most ruthless man alive, she would not leave. She would stay by his side and be his light. Liwei kept his eyes on her, his expression unreadable, his breathing heavy. Then his voice dropped, quiet but sharp, as he asked her even if she knew he had killed his uncle and Jan's father, would she still stay? Even if he was still willing to hunt down everyone involved in what happened to his family and kill them all, would she still stay? Still love him? Still see him as the same man she had fallen in love with? Amara's eyes widened at his words, her entire body freezing as everything began to piece itself together. That night, he said he was going to his marketing team's get-together. He had gone to kill Kai's father. And months before, when he suddenly left with his gun in the middle of the night, the next morning's news about Jan's father's death. It all made sense now. Her heart pounded as she looked at him lying there, his eyes fixed on her as though searching for an answer. The silence that filled the room was deafening, heavy with truth and revelation, as Liwei's words lingered between them like a storm waiting to break. Amara looked at him and touched his face gently, her fingers tracing the curve of his jaw as she told him that she trusted him, trusted his actions, trusted his heart, and that she knew he would never hurt innocent people. She told him she wasn't afraid of him, that she would never leave him, that no matter what came their way, she would always stand by his side, and together they would face everything and come out stronger than ever. Liwei nodded silently, his arm tightening around her, pulling her closer as if afraid that letting go would make her words vanish. His voice broke slightly as he said that he didn't really care about his uncle, that the man deserved everything that happened to him. He said that most of the trauma he carried now was because of his uncle, the pain, the years of torment, the nights he thought he wouldn't survive, that if it hadn't been for Master Shen, he would have died in that correctional institution. His tone darkened as he went on, his voice trembling under the weight of emotion. He said the only person he was worried about was Kai, how he would ever look him in the eye knowing he had taken his father's life, how he feared that if Kai ever found out, he would hate him forever. He said he had no choice, that his uncle had been part of what happened to his family, that he had done worse than anyone could imagine, and Kai would never understand that. He confessed that when he planned his revenge, he swore not to spare anyone, not family, not friends, no one who was involved. His words cracked as he admitted that if Kai ever discovered the truth, their brotherhood would be finished. His voice was heavy, breaking, as he said that he valued Kai so much that losing him would destroy what was left of him. Amara's chest tightened as she watched him. Seeing the pain in his eyes, the torment behind his calm exterior, she realized how deeply it hurt him. She pulled him into her arms, whispering softly that it was okay, that they were in this together, that no matter what happened, they would overcome it side by side. Her hand brushed through his hair as she told him to try and rest, that he would feel better in the morning. Liwei buried his head in her chest, his arms tightening around her waist as though he could draw strength from her heartbeat. Amara gently caressed his hair, humming quietly, holding him until his breathing slowed and sleep finally took him. Her eyes wandered over his face, peaceful but shadowed by everything he carried inside. Her mind, however, refused to rest. Thoughts raced through her. Guilt, fear, love. She realized that part of this was her fault. She had asked him to be ruthless again, to be the man he once was for the sake of his mission. And now, this was the result. She looked at him, sleeping, and thought about how far she was willing to go, how deeply she was willing to sink, just to stay by his side. When she was certain he was asleep, she laid him down gently, brushing the hair from his face. She stood walking quietly toward the kitchen to get him a glass of water in case he woke up thirsty. The silence of the house pressed around her, until the faint sound of guitar strings reached her ears. Her steps slowed as she turned toward the sound. Kai sat in the living room, guitar in hand, playing softly, his expression relaxed and cheerful. The faint smile on his face twisted something deep inside her. He didn't know. He had no idea that his father was already gone. He noticed her then and immediately set the guitar aside, standing up with his usual teasing grin. He walked over, chuckling as he told her that her man was finally back, yet she still looked so serious. He leaned closer, joking that she should be glowing by now after waiting for liwei the whole day. Amara looked at him but didn't say anything. The guilt in her chest grew heavier with every word. She forced a small smile, hoping he wouldn't notice how pale she had become. Kai frowned slightly, asking her if she was okay, saying she looked distracted. Snapping out of her thoughts, she forced a brighter smile, assuring him that she was fine. Kai smiled back, nodding, saying that if she was fine, then so was he. He asked if liwei was okay, mentioning how drunk he seemed when he came in. That he never got drunk like that unless something was seriously bothering him. He wondered aloud if something had happened at the get-together, his tone curious but light. Before Amara could respond, Kai's phone rang. He glanced at the screen and said it was Fang, probably an update about his father's condition. He quickly answered, turning slightly away as he spoke. Amara stood there, her hands trembling slightly around the glass of water. Her throat tightened as she watched him talk, smiling faintly, unaware of what had already been done. The sound of his voice mixed with the quiet hum of the night, and the truth hung in the air between them, heavy, silent, and irreversible.